Welcome to Where's My Sports At? My guest on today's podcast is Matt Nesbitt. Matt is an international level strength and conditioning coach for 15-a-side and 7-a-side rugby teams. Matt, welcome. It's great to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being available and generous with your time.
No, thanks, Craig. Look forward to it.
Excellent. So how are you settling into Perth? How long have you been here now?
So I've just been here just over a year, and I've settled in well. Initial stages with all places as you go through sort of a bit of a shock and adjustment, but no, I feel really good here. I've got a lot of friends from back home, so that's really helped. It's a good community and good lifestyle.
So you've been here a year now. What are you doing with yourself? Are you involved with any rugby teams?
Yeah, so the past season year, I was involved with the Junior Brothers rugby side, heading up their S&C program. So they play in the WA Premiership here. But I stopped that this year. And then concurrently with that, last year, April, I started a job on the mines. And it's basically injury management on the mines, working with health and safety. And that's been really an amazing experience. So yeah, I'm doing that at the moment. So I'm applying S&C principles to the mines because, as you know, with an S&C, your main job is to prevent injuries. So I'm applying that on the mines, and I actually just recently finished my master's and did my thesis on it. And like positive news, I passed this week, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Are you doing like training with people? What are you sort of doing? What does it involve doing S&C on a mine site?
Yeah, so it's more individual based, and then when you go to the mine site, you work with um, different roles on the mines. So basically, and we've got these sensors which can be equated to GPS accelerometers in professional sport, and we put them onto the guys, and that basically gives us live data on their movements, and we can see that's a high risk lower back movement or high risk shoulder movement, and they'll do it for a shift, and then we get that data back. We will also go down with them and video them, and then just observe their work, and basically see their movements and see which is high injury risk, and then advise them. From that, we do a whole report and send it back to the mine, and then on that advice, then hopefully they implement that. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Wow, you wouldn't know that sort of thing. Is that common practice within mine sites, or is this something you guys are piloting because of your background?
So it's new. The company I work for is called Sano Health, and all these guys are ex like AFL S&C coaches, and they've basically applied it to the mines. I haven't heard of any other companies at the moment, but I'm pretty sure it's going to become part of the mine basic programs, basically, because injuries are so important on the mines to prevent them. If you think of a jumbo driller, if he gets injured, to fly a specialist like that out to the site, which is remote, is quite tough at a short notice. So yeah, it's quite interesting, but also you're dealing with a different type of person. With an athlete, they want to work with you. They really want to. Anything that you tell them, they'll lap up, and they want to experience different things. It can be quite challenging with mine workers because they're not really into that. So you have to persuade them and sort of tell them, basically show them that this is not hogwash what we're doing. You know what I mean? So there's a bit of education that needs to be done. So I have encountered sort of obstacles like that, but yeah, a different challenge and different environment.
Definitely a different culture. That's blown my mind. I hadn't even considered they were going there. So is it with lots of different positions, or are you just trialing this with certain job roles currently in the mines?
Yeah, so it's all different job roles on the mines. Every time you go out, we work with a different job role. So yeah, it varies up like that in terms of what you're doing on your site trip, basically.
I can imagine you may get a bit of resistance from people because whenever you're in a job and you have people come out and start analyzing your job, you always wonder what the future of your job looks like. What can you see being the end game with this type of work you're doing with these people in these roles? Is it that they hire a different type of person without, or they screen differently for people for certain roles because of possible injuries? Or do the people in roles have to, be BMI tested, or do they have to do X amount of physical training? Can you see that being where it goes?
So they already do medicals um, before they go onto the mine to see if they're fit to work. So part of my thesis was actually a recommendation that this sort of be put into their medical assessments. So before you start a job on the mine site, you need to go through the process we're doing on the mines at the moment to sort of see if you have any injury risks or previous injury history, and then put that part of your medical profile. The other thing that I recommended in my thesis was we've got the technology, and we're doing it like with a coaching eye, with watching them and videoing them, and then looking at their movements. And but the one other thing is you can do like practical assessments, so you can make the movements with them in the gym, and you can see where they are high risk sort of areas. For example, like the yonder hip assessments, for example, is like a practical one you can do. So having the technology, having the coaching eye is good, but also to add another sphere to that. So in short, I'd add it to the medical assessments, and then you need to be assessed periodically, like you do with the team.
Can you see it? And my last question in regards to this, can you see it changing the demographic of the workforce and that sort of resources industry if this was adopted widely?
I'm seeing I'm seeing young people quite receptive to this. I think because they're more educated on it. Um, and then what you're getting with the older mine worker is sort of that person who hasn't really looked after themselves, and now they're sort of regretting it. So what you're trying to embed in the future in the young person is basically you don't want to end up like that. If you look after yourself, prevent injuries, you can have a long working life. And on top of that, you can have a good family life or whatever you enjoy outside of the mining role. You don't want to be crooked. You don't want to be walking with an arched back around when you've got kids and stuff. So it's trying to hammer down those sort of messages. So I see the future very much with the younger guys, and I see when they move into leadership roles, it'll become a bigger thing.
So, can I ask you to start us off, and give us a bit of a bio of who you are and what your S&C and coaching background is?
I grew up in Zimbabwe, grew up on a farm until about 9 years old, which was an amazing upbringing on the farm, going hunting, fishing, just bushwalking with dad. And yeah, just a wonderful experience. From that early age, I was very active and very much started getting into cricket and rugby. And then when we moved to town in Bulawayo, which is the second biggest city in Zimbabwe, yeah, I enrolled at a primary school there and literally played all sports that I could, but mainly it was cricket, rugby, and athletics. From there, I went to high school, a school called Falcon College, which was always known as a very it's based on the old traditional boarding school system. We would be at that school for 3 weeks and then come out for a fixture free, and then go back type thing. But very much an outdoor school. It's got its own game farm right next to it. Um, awesome extracurricular program, and many like good cricketers have come out of that school. I don't know if you remember the late Heath Streak, the Andy Flower and Grant Flower. Uh, but they didn't come from Falcon, sorry, but like Heath Streak was from Falcon. But quite a few other guys that you'll recognize. At one stage, I think in 98 or 99, we had 9 ex-Falcon Old Boys in that cricket side. So very rich history there. And right now, they've got a very good rugby program, headed up by the ex-national coach, Brendan Dawson. Um, Anyways, from there, I went and studied sports science at Tuckies, which is University of Pretoria. And why I went into sports science is obviously I played nationally rugby under 18, and I played with the Beast in Taurira, which was an amazing experience. Um, but I sort of knew that I would never make it professionally. Could maybe play it semi-pro, but I thought, no, you know what, my career is in the performance side of things, and that's where I went. Luckily, while I was studying, I got a job at Pretoria Boys High to head up the S&C program, and at that stage, it was just sort of becoming a big thing in schools. Um, and there was over 1,500 boys, old boys like John Smith, Chili Boy Radapele, to name a few, Elon Musk out of the sporting world. Um, so very amazing school, beautiful grounds, and I was there for 6 years. And it was while I was there that I was approached to work with the Zimbabwe 7's by the manager Bruce Hobson. And that's when my 7's journey started, and worked with them for was about a year. And yeah, what an amazing experience that was. And that's what actually sort of led me to Hong Kong. We went to the Hong Kong 7's, and I fell in love with the city. And I was like, I need to get there. And with a year later, I went across, and that's when my Hong Kong journey started for 6 years, and worked with the club Hong Kong Scottish, and then worked. So that to go back into that, Hong Kong was more focused with coaching, and S&C was secondary. I wanted to give coaching a good go there. So I was more of a transitional coach, working with development side and with the Prem, and then the age grade, reserve grade side, and then doing a bit of S&C with the Hong Kong Rugby Union, but also privately as well. And that was an amazing experience for 6 years. Um, and then, from Hong Kong, pandemic hit. And then, unfortunately, it was just getting too hectic in Hong Kong. Hadn't seen family in a long time. Restrictions were crazy. So I went home and worked online, and then tried to give like Zimbabwe and SA a good go and see if there was some long-term options there. But obviously, after that, nothing really came up, and decided to make the move to Oz. And here I am, Craig.
Well, you picked the right place in Oz, my friend.
Yeah,
Wow, I've just made some notes from the things you were saying, and it's so much to chat about. When you went to high school, was that in Zim or Pretoria? Like when yourself was at high school?
no, it's in Zimbabwe. It's about 60 kilometers outside the second city, Bulawayo, and it's about approximately. It used to be all boys boarding school, but a few years back they introduced ladies into the school, so it's now both girls and boys. And that's, if you look at highlights of my life, those 6 years were probably a major highlight of my life. I loved it. Loved the boarding school scenarios, and loved the sporting aspect of it. Loved the boarding school side, the adventure side with the game park and doing stuff there. And the friends that I made there are still lifelong friends now. It's also a family tradition. My dad went there, my uncle went there, my cousin went there. So yeah, that's a special, and I still engage with them. Last year, I helped the first team coach with some analysis section. I did a talk there as a guest speaker there last year, or the year before, sorry. So yeah, I'll still watch their games online. So yeah, I'm a proud old boy.
And you know what? That's the same thing I've heard mirrored from another guest we had a while ago. He just raves. He's a little bit younger, but he just raves about his high school days. He was in South Africa, but the system sounds very sort of similar with the Zimbabwe and South African high schools. And all I can be is just jealous, when you say things like that. You had a game park right next to your high school. How
Yeah.
amazing is that?
It I can't explain it. Like what people call trail running now was cross country back then. Same thing, but our cross country race, trail race, with people who don't know what a cross country race is, was through the national park. You'd be running past giraffes while on your run. Like,
We had cows and sheep in New Zealand, not quite as glamorous as giraffes. And did your high school have I've seen online these South African high schools, and they do these big chants before the rugby game. Like, it seems like the whole school is lined up and they all have their own chant. Did you have the same thing?
yeah, we had that, and I personally, having worked at Pretoria Boys High, and then going to high school in Zimbabwe, we think our war cries are actually better. A lot of the time they sung in the local language in Ndebele or Shona, and the rhythm and the passion that they do it with is amazing. So that was, and we had to learn those off by heart. In Form One, you're basically drilled to learn those war cries, and you've got war cry leaders. And basically, if you don't know the words, you'd be punished for it.
So going back to when you took on the role with Zimbabwe Sevens, that was strength and conditioning, and I think you told me that was to do with was it a world you were trying to make the Sevens tournament, weren't you? You were just the one
Yeah.
level below.
So Zimbabwe and then Rhodesia has got a really, really rich rugby history. Not a lot of people will know this, but Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, has the best record against the All Blacks. And they played two tests in 1949, and Rhodesia won the first thing. It was 10-8, and the second one was drawn in Seoul, what was called Salisbury, and it's now Harare. So we still brag about that. But then from then onwards, I mean, Rhodesia played against the British and Irish Lions in 1974, Willie John McBride, that sort of that era. They played against all the six home nations. They played against USA, Argentina, right up until 1980. And we were also involved in the Currie Cup. Rhodesia was involved, played against Western Province, Transvaal, Natal. And then when it became Zimbabwe, that sort of carried over. And Zimbabwe carried on in the Currie Cup, but then were involved in the first World Cup in 1987 in your home country.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a famous try actually by Richard Simba, which is, if you look it up, has been sort of been viral for quite a while. I can't remember who was it against. I think it might have been Romania. I'm not too sure. But yeah, amazing try. But that was quite a highlight of that World Cup. And then we were at the World Cup again in 1991, where we played against the likes of Scotland, Ireland, Japan. Can't remember exactly who else, but yeah, we played the top teams. You know what I mean? And Zimbabwe competed. We were a strong rugby nation. That unfortunately was the last World Cup in 1991 that we made. Didn't make the 95 one, and we didn't make the World Cup from then. 1999, 2000 was probably the turn of where things sort of went down with the sport, and it was hand in hand with the economy. There was turmoil in Zimbabwe with the land invasions and farms being taken, and the economy sort of dove from there. Schoolboy remained strong, but after that, there was nothing. I remember in my final year just thinking, like, there's nothing for us after school. If we which we used to have a strong club system, which my brother played in, like for a club there, I would have gone into that club system and carried on playing, but there was nothing to aspire to anymore. Then around about 2004, 2005, a guy called Bruce Hobson decided to, and I think he was the president, but also he was the manager of the 7's. He saw the way to revive Zimbabwe rugby was through 7's. So they managed to gather players and put together a team, and they were very competitive. We used to beat the likes of France, Scotland, a few others, and give the other teams a really good run for their money. Anyway, fast forward to where I got involved. It was 2012, 2013, and Zimbabwe was trying to get onto the core series, but you had to go through these qualification sort of stages. To understand how it was working with them, I was still working at Pretoria Boys High, and there were three guys on the ground in Harare in Zimbabwe, and there was the coach Gilbert Nyansamba, the commercial manager David Crouch, who I went to school with. We played rugby in the same team together, good friend, and then Bruce Hobson, the same man who saw that vision of sort of 7's reviving the game. And they would be in Harare. I would design the programs from South Africa, send it through to them, and then we would keep in constant communication. They'd implement it for me, and then when there were tournaments, they would fly me in, and then I'd run the program from there. So to understand the type of athlete you're dealing with, these guys are coming from the high density areas. A lot of them, they're from not very strong backgrounds, wealthy backgrounds. They've come through hardship. So to get them into that sort of professional mode is very tough because a lot of them wanted money, but the Zimbabwe rugby union didn't have the money. So you have to sell them the carrot that, like, we need to work hard to attain core status, of which then you will get money. You know what I mean? And so we had to implement that program. And for 6 months, sponsors came on board and actually were able to give them a salary. So they had a good S&C program, they had a nutritional program, they had their coaching, they had their management, and they were getting paid. Not a lot, but for those guys, it was a lot, if that makes sense. And we really did well. So we won the Hong Kong qualifier. We beat Tonga in the final. From then we moved on to London, where we had to play against the bottom stage teams from the core series to qualify. And we got to the quarterfinal, and fortunately we lost to Scotland. So it was really disappointing. But then the following year they changed the rules again, And if you won the Hong Kong qualifier, you automatically got onto the series.
Oh, no.
So there's been a lot of unlucky moments. Following year, 2015, same thing. So we came back to try qualify. We got to the final. We played Russia in the final. We'd literally won the game. It was the last play of the game, and Russia got through somehow and scored in the corner to win the game. So there's been a lot of heartbreak with the Zim Sevens, yeah. But Bruce's vision paid off because the 15s grew from that. The program grew, and 2015 they nearly qualified for the World Cup again. They lost out to Namibia, but through just one what you could call poor decision, um, instead of going for post, they tried to go for a try. And if they'd just gone for post, they would have won in points difference to make the. So this was in 2014 to make the 2015 World Cup in England. So there's been that close sort of they're nearly there type scenarios. But in my personal opinion, what Zimbabwe rugby needs is a Twiggy Forest. Simple as that. There's so much talent that's coming out of there. If we go back to the history, how many Springboks have come from Rhodesia, Zimbabwe? We can go right back. And you can look up more about this, but I'll just highlight it. Like Des Van Jaarsveld, the captain of Springbok, was from Rhodesia. Ronnie Hill, another guy, and we're talking about the 1960s here. Ray Mort, Chris Rogers, Adrian Garvey, Gary Teichmann was from Zimbabwe. Admittedly, he went to high school in South Africa, but he was from Zimbabwe. Then you go into more of the modern area, and you got Beast Tarira, who was from Zimbabwe. So we've always provided talent to around the world, and you go even further. You go David Pocock here in Oz, Kyle Godwin, Sebastian Negri, who's with Italy now. Quite a few other pro players like David Ewers. I could actually go on. There's quite a lot. So we've got this rich talent that is in Zimbabwe. We just don't have the financial aspect to push it to the pro game, because now the sevens team is probably better than what they were. I watched their sevens tournament last year for the World Cup Olympic qualifiers, and they're a bloody good side. But all these teams have now gotten pro, and we've just stayed in sort of that same. We've plateaued basically. So, in my opinion, we need a Twiggy Forest. We need a person who's got a wealth of money, who believes in Zimbabwe rugby. And yeah, we just need to be bankrolled basically to become professional. And if that happens, you'd see Zimbabwe at the World Cups.
With that Zimbabwe Sevens team you were coaching, you had challenges that other countries didn't have to face. Other countries probably would have had players who were professional at that stage. All their time is available. They would have had access to probably, more resources, better gyms, all this sort of stuff that must have been just, you're playing with one arm behind your back.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't understand. So a lot of people will look at it. Oh, Zimbabwe lost in that final to the qualifier against Russia. Hard luck. Try again next year. You don't understand it, how devastated those players are, because it would have changed their lives.
That's something that might not be next year for them, would there?
No, and since then they actually haven't reached those heights, because teams have just improved so much. Look at someone like Uruguay, where they've come out. We were thrashing Uruguay in sevens, and the 15s was there. But now look at them; they're at the World Cups and they're competing, and they'll probably make the core sevens circuit soon.
Yeah. So talking about sevens, we've got a lot of other stuff to talk about, but talking about sevens, one thing, because obviously that's where we met at the Perth Sevens, fantastic tournament too. Thought they did a great job.
Yeah.
If we sort of go back in the day in sevens, you had superstars. You had your Waisali Sarevis, your Eric Rushes, people that were around for a long period of time and were really well known. Is it the competition is just leveled up so much that you sort of don't have those standout superstars anymore? Or who are the superstars in your mind?
I think what's happened is, and I'll go back there, and you can add Christian Cullen and Jonah Lomer to that.
I was going to, but then they were more 15s, specialists.
Yeah. But yeah, but what has happened is sevens is a tough game. To go from sevens to 15s is easy because you're highly fit. But to go from 15s to sevens, they struggle. 15s players really struggle. People don't understand the high energy demands of a sevens rugby game. For 14 minutes, you're doing repeated sprints. You're tackling, you're getting on the ground, you're getting back up. It's repeated sprints, it's grappling, it's skills. It really, really tests you. So what you're getting with sevens is more of an athlete, an Olympic athlete, if that makes sense. Specialized Olympic athletes that just specializes in sevens. And it's basically the sevens and 15s are separating. You have specialist 15s and specialist sevens, and only a few
shapes.
Yeah, look at Perry Baker, 37 years old, racing snake, but a seven suits him so well. And if there's more examples through the seven circuit of guys, they're just slender, but they've got pace, and in sevens, that's no substitute. And it's no substitute in 15s as well. But in 15s, the margins are that much smaller. The game is that much more tighter. For Perry Baker to make what he does in Magic, he does in sevens, to do in 15s is a lot more tougher. And that's why you've seen the specialization. And obviously, being an Olympic sport has also helped.
Now, Matt, I can see you've got a few jerseys hanging up on the wall. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown about them? They obviously have a lot of meaning to you, so tell us about them.
Yeah, sure. So I'll quickly, because we chatted about Zimbabwe. Yeah, so this is the Zimbabwe Sevens jersey, which we used at the 2013 World Cup. So yeah, it had your name on the back and stuff. But yeah, I keep this for when I eventually frame and put everything up. So it's a good history that I have.
That's a beautiful jersey.
Yeah. And then the others are from Hong Kong. Well, actually, we'll go back to Pretoria Boys High days. So this is a very special jersey. So this is a limited edition 2007 World Cup jersey, and it's signed by John Smith. But there's only, if you see here, only 5,000 of them were made. So this is very special. And what I've got from it is I've got a whole story. So you've got certificate of authentication, team photo, and then the story of the World Cup and how they won it. And it's all like well done. So basically, it's made to be put in a big frame. So I'll eventually get to do that. But very special. And I won this. Actually, a letter I sent to SA Rugby magazine about Zimbabwe rugby.
Oh, wow.
And then these two are from Hong Kong. This is the Hong Kong Sevens jersey a while back. It's a pretty nice jersey, really good fabric and cookery, the sponsor. But yeah, really, really nice jersey. And this is Hong Kong Scottish, which is probably really special memories with this club. This is their 10th anniversary. When I left Hong Kong, they gave this to me. This was my good friend Gregor McNeish's jersey that he played in. So when I told him that they gave me this jersey, I think he was a bit pissed off. And then, yeah, this was also given by the club. It's one of the players' jerseys, which I'm wearing. And yeah, we'll get these all framed and put up into my man cave.
Well, now that you're settled in Perth, you've got a place to put them, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
They're really nice jerseys. That the Hong Kong rugby one, is that from the Hong Kong Rugby Club? That's who it's from?
No, this the Sevens one.
Yes.
This is the national team, Hong Kong Sevens national team. Yeah. So one of the players from Scottish played for them, and then he donated it to the club, and then somehow I ended up getting it. I can't remember how, but yeah, I'll take it.
That's a nice jersey, and looking at all the different manufacturers' jerseys on them, it looks really cool too. Because you got a Canterbury one there. That one was a kookery one. It's really neat.
Yeah.
And that Springboks jersey, much as that's like the the total enemy for the All Blacks. That is a really nice jersey. That's a beautiful jersey, that one.
Yeah, and this actually, if you look here, this kit maker Tsunami is based in Hong Kong.
Ah,
They probably make one of the best kits that I've come across around the world. They are very good.
really?
Um, yeah, the material they make, the stuff, not just the jerseys, just the training stuff, and then the off the field stuff. Really, really good.
Amazing. Now we've onto the subject of Hong Kong Scottish. So you spent 6 years there, and you decided to move to Hong Kong because you went there with the Zimbabwe Sevens, loved the place, and said this is going to be my new home. And so you just packed up and you moved there. And how did you get
Yeah.
a job? How did you get a job with the Hong Kong Scottish team?
I emailed them and just said, this is my background and I'm keen to get involved. And then I didn't get an email back initially. So I arrived in Hong Kong and I initially, because I was sort of playing as well. And I went to a club called Hong Kong Sandy Bay and I was training everything. And for all intents and purposes, I was going to join them. And I was really enjoying playing again. But I kept asking them, I said, do you have any coaching opportunities? Because I want to coach as well. And they never really gave me much. And I emailed Hong Kong Scottish again. And then Brian Rennie, the is the Exeter Chiefs and Bristol rugby player, originally from Durban, Sharks Academy. He was the GM of Hong Kong Scottish, and then he said to me, "Come, let's go for a coffee." And we chatted and got along really well. And they offered me to be the coach of the development side for Hong Kong Scottish, and I was like, "Yeah, sign me up." So that's when I started with Hong Kong Scottish and coached their development side, and that was talk about highlights in life. That was probably one of my highlights in my life because I wasn't dealing with semi-pro or pro athletes anymore. I was now dealing with players who hardly know how to play rugby, and we have to develop them into a team that can compete in this league. Um, and initially, it was really tough. Their first game against Hong Kong Football Club, which is probably the most famous club in Hong Kong. I think we got beaten 62-12. A few more nasty beatings after that. And then there was one point I started playing again. And I'm not saying this is related to me starting to play again, but we played against a team called Kowloon. And we were really competing and really doing well. And yeah, we ended up winning that game 6-5. And that was like the turning point of that team. They started clicking, they started playing really well, they started understanding patterns, they started really gelling as a team. And from then on, we went on basically unbeaten. And then we played Hong Kong Football Club again. And I think the score was like literally with about 10 minutes to go, it was maybe 15-12 to them. And in the last 2 minutes, they scored, I think, another try or something. It ended up being 21-12, the final score. But we had gone from 60 to 12 to that scoreline. Carried on. Red got into the quarterfinals, won our quarterfinal, then got into the semi-finals, and we played Hong Kong Football Club again. And you talk about satisfying moments. This was probably, I'd say it's my most satisfying rugby moment in my life. To bring these guys to this point and now to face these guys who, in all intents and purposes, were quite arrogant. Um, all expats, and we were what the local boys basically, and what the local boys call white boys in Hong Kong is guilos. There were about 3 or 4 guilos, and the coach was a guilo. So they had quite a grudge to make against the expats, the Hong Kong Football Club, and they were a good side. All ex-players who played at a good level, but just playing at a lower division now. And anyways, we were behind with 5 minutes to go. We needed to score 2 tries, converted tries to draw. And this little guy, Oscar, was playing fly off. And the one, he chipped it over into the 22, and the lucky bounce got the ball and scored in the corner. Conversion from the sideline. And it's now literally the 79th, 80th minute. I catch the ball on the outs, and I see the space on the wide, and I just flick it across, and I just say, send it. And we sent it across right to the left wing, and then he bolted into the corner. So now time is done. And for some reason, our kicker couldn't kick. I think he was off the field. Our kicker was a prop, a Northern Englishman, Tom Hayden. So we had to get this guy, Alan. And Alan was a football player who played rugby. So he kicked the ball like a toe punch. He didn't kick it like a normal place kicker would kick.
Yep.
So we were all sitting there with our hearts in our mouths because Alan's going to take the kick. To get this over, we draw the game and we go into extra time. And Alan toe punts this kick straight through the poles, splits the uprights, and we just go crazy. Anyway, we still need to win the game, so we recompose and get back out. And by this time, I think the guys were just so motivated that we were not going to lose that game. And we got a golden penalty. So basically, as if whoever scored first points won the game. And it was on the halfway line. And at that stage, I knew to put Tom back on because if we had a crucial kick, we needed him. So you can imagine this prop from Northern England lining up the kick at a halfway line, and boom, slots it through to win it.
Amazing.
And that feeling, watching those guys who didn't believe in themselves, to see their faces was, and I've got a picture of it which I'll share with you, and it was amazing. I can't explain that feeling. The night out after that was just so sweet. We had such a great time, and I'll never forget that. Never ever forget that. And yeah, it's a special memory of mine.
Wow. Is it on YouTube at all? Has anyone got video of it?
We could probably try find it. Yeah, we could probably try find it. I'll look it up and see if we can get it. Yeah, and then from there carried on with them, and then worked with the reserve grade side as well, and then worked with the Prem side with an amazing coach called Craig Hammond. He's now the head coach of Nottingham Rugby. Just that club was just an amazing club. From the directors and the managers like Stuart Saunders, all Scottish boys, and I think Stewie's got an MBE from the Queen. Like he's really well respected in the business world. And Brian Rennie, he's now gone on. He's now the GM with Hong Kong Rugby Union. He's the one who organizes the Hong Kong Sevens, and Davey Bruce. These are all the management, but they treated you like family. Because you got to imagine all these people come from all over the world and they don't have their families there, and they treated you like family. It was amazing, and such characters, local characters as well. Just awesome people to go out on the piss on afterwards, and they'll take you to all these awesome places in Hong Kong, go of hot pot, and then do 7-Eleven crawl, and so that social aspect was also very special. So yeah, when I go back in April now, like I'm just so looking forward to seeing them.
But you're going back for the was it the final time that the 7's is going to be played in the stadium where it's been, I think, for 30 years before it moves to the new one?
Yeah, exactly. Had to go to this one. I haven't been back to Hong Kong since I left, and that stadium, Sokon Po Stadium, is iconic. It's that's where the 7's has been since right from the beginning. David Campese, Jonah Lome, Christian Cullen, Wasali Serevi, like it's iconic. And the South Stand, the party stand, I mean, that's where the party and the stand originated, and it's now around the world. So last one there at Sokon Po, last year ever, so it had to be there. And next year it goes to the new stadium in the Victoria Harbour, which will be state of the art stadium. So the 7's will have a new home, and it'll be a total different experience. So wanted to be there for that last one.
Now I want to, talk seriously about strength and conditioning, because we've had a bit of a fun time with the 7's. So you said that you were in Hong Kong, you were strength conditioning, and you were also the coach. Now these are two sort of roles that, if you're doing them to their fullest, they're both full-time roles. How did you balance that?
Well, so the Hong Kong Rugby Union was part-time when they needed me, type thing. And then the Hong Kong Scottish was also part-time. And I also taught English while I was doing both jobs. And then also I worked privately with private clients doing S&C. So I had quite a lot going on, but I've always been like that. So I've always been like, I like to multitask like that. Right now I'm doing the mine work, I'm doing my carpentry work, and I'm doing fencing as well. And so yeah, it keeps me busy. It keeps me interesting. Keeps me interested, that is. So yeah, that's how I managed it basically.
Well, did you have obviously you played the game and you were a strength and conditioning coach, but being a coach can be more not individual player fitness and strength and workouts. It's about, team patterns and plays and that sort of thing. How did you get on with that side? Did you have much experience about or knowledge that you'd gained from being a strength and conditioning coach in rugby that you were able to apply to that role?
Yeah, so that's probably one of the benefits of an S&C coach, is you work very closely with head coaches and assistant coaches. So if you've got a background in rugby already, that's good. But then you're right next to those coaches and you're working with those coaches. So you pick up what they're doing. And through that you learn. But then going into that role, I also had to learn a lot, exactly like you said, patterns and teaching the guys where to be when that certain phase of play. And so that was a
Team.
major learning experience. Yeah, exactly. And that was a major learning experience for me. It was so good for me because I also had to go down to basics, just like them. So we were in those trenches together, you know what I mean? And that's why I say it was so satisfying when we did well because we fought together, we learned together. It was a really humbling experience. I really recommend anyone who wants to coach or develop as a coach to go to Hong Kong because they really push for that. It's a good place where you're getting all these players who have played like NPC level, Shoot Shield, Varsity Cup in South Africa, some of them Curry Cup, Championship in the UK, and they all come play in Hong Kong. And coaches can learn a lot there because the Hong Kong Rugby Union is very good in terms of their coach development. So it is such a good place for a springboard. Come there, spend however many years you want to do there, develop yourself, and then you can move on to a good role somewhere else. So very, very interesting, and their setup is good, I think. So they got 6 major clubs there. So Hong Kong Scottish, Hong Kong Football Club, Sandy Bay, Valley, Kowloon, and Tigers, and they're semi-professional. And what I like about it is that semi-professional model. Number one, you'll get match fees, depending on how good you are. That'll be a variant, but they'll get you a job in your area of speciality. They'll sort out your gym, your medical insurance, and they'll sort out your accommodation.
Wow.
So you got really the best of both worlds in the terms that you're getting paid, and if you're a good player, you get paid well. Those match fees will be good. You're getting a career, and you're getting benefits. So, and then if you want to go pro, if you're into 7's, the 15s used to be professional, but then COVID sort of stuffed that up. But they may go back to that. But the 7's is professional. So if you want to go fully professional, you can. So just think it's a really good rugby environment, Hong Kong.
And you get to explore Hong Kong. I think that's part of your
Yeah,
attraction there as well,
exactly.
wasn't it?
And yeah, exactly. And everyone thinks it's just a city, but
No.
it's islands and it's mountains and it's beaches. So it's a great place.
And it's interesting you're talking about how, working in the S&C close to head coaches, you learn a lot. And popped to mind Jack's Ninaba. Didn't he spend a lot of time working? Was he like a physio or something with Razzie?
Yeah. Yeah. So he started off as a physio, worked with Rassi and then transitioned into S&C. Then he
Oh, wow.
transitioned into defense. And then from then on, mainly defense up until the point he was appointed Springbok head coach. So that's what's so good about working close with these coaches is you learn. And then you've got your own background, which will benefit you once you become a head coach.
Mm.
I think so. One guy I'd like to touch on is he stopped coaching the national team in Zimbabwe now. His name is Brendan Dawson, but he played in the 99 World Cup, 1991 World Cup with Zimbabwe. And for the past 10 years, he's been the national coach for Zimbabwe. And he was the coach when they nearly made it. And they tried again in 2021, 2020. And once again, they fell short against Namibia. But he now rates, and he's a very good coach. And I'm so glad he's now coaching my old school because I think we're going to do really well. But he rates what is now called the athletic performance coach, which is an S&C coach. So now that's what they call it. They have head of athletic performance and you're an athletic performance coach because it's more than S&C. It's not just strength and conditioning. There's other things you need to factor in. He rates the athletic performance coach as the next most important coach to him, to the head
Wow.
coach. And he believes because way he wants the team to play needs to mirror the way they trained and where they're physically conditioned and the way they're looked after. So it's very interesting his approach. And if you look now, like the head of it, look at Nick Gill with the All Blacks, how long he's been there and how important he is to that side. Um, Whenever he does sort of move on, that gap is going to be hard to fill. So it's become a very specialized and a very important position. And as sports science has grown and it's become very research based, it's a very technical position. You need to understand, number one, the demands of rugby. Number two, the individual demands. So a wing will need to have different demands to a prop or a lock,
Mm-hmm.
as will a center. Then on top of that, you need to understand that individual player's physiological strengths and weaknesses. So now I'm trying to imagine putting a squad of 40 people and to try and incorporate all those different aspects and to keep on top, periodically testing them, but also monitoring them because every single person is different and what works for that one doesn't work for the other one. So
Amazing.
it's actually a very technical and specialized and scientific position now.
So it's not just as you may imagine as first guess in the gym helping them, with programs. It's a lot of testing. It sounds very similar to what you were talking about right back at the start about on the mine sites. It's very data driven.
It's data, technologically, psychology. It's hectic. It's really great, and you have to look to America to understand it. They've always been the leader in this field. You go look one of the NFL or NBA teams, and you go look at their performance setup, and it's a whole department. You got your head of athletic performance, and you got about 4 or 5 athletic performance coaches. You got your physiotherapists, you got your psychologists, you got your nutritionists. One of those athletic performance coaches will specialize in sprinting. One will specialize in on-field conditioning. One will specialize in strength. One will specialize in this. It's really it's become multifaceted, and it's become a whole department on its own with a professional team.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we're running out of time to get into that area today, but I'd definitely love to dedicate another session with you, just actually digging into the strength and conditioning side of things. If you when you're back from your next swing, if that would be cool.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I'd love to.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I want to thank you for coming along today. It's been, I really appreciate your time, and sharing your knowledge with me. Yeah, thank you very much.
No, thanks, Greg, and what an awesome way we met at the 7's, and yeah, it's been great chatting on the podcast, and I look forward to more.
Awesome. The only thing left for us to do is catch up next time in town for a beer.
Absolutely. No, I'd love to do that. Maybe we watch the All Black Springboks game together.
Oh, yes, definitely. We'll have to do that. We'll come up to the city and watch that one in the city at the casino.
We'll bring you to Boktown. You come to the Bok supporters.
Where's that?
So every time there's a Bok game in Perth, they've got a thing called Boktown. It's normally in Leadable. And yeah, they put on a whole like Springbok thing, and yeah, it's a cool experience.
Well, I'll come along in my All Blacks jersey. I'm sure they'll love me.
Yeah. It'll
Awesome,
be good
mate.
banter.
Oh, definitely. It's a thing you love about rugby. Anyway, I appreciate your time, my friend. You have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Craig. Keep well
Thank you.
there.
Cheers.
Cheers there.